Okay, so please help yourself to the food that Suzanne Smith brought from CEB. And I don't know if you all know each other. We don't have name tags, so introduce yourself. You can do it. We're all librarians, so make sure everyone knows each other. Say hello. It's a command. Pardon? Yes, we're going to wait a few more minutes so you have a chance to eat.
On the left side, right before you get to Delmar High School. It's like the second down from, as you're coming down, it's the second one. And actually, we're moving like 6 months down the hill. Well, not on this street, but on the El Camino. But probably half a mile over the road. But not as far as Baldwin Street. Carmen.
It's like a reunion. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
It's been a long time.
how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
The library. And then Kevin was with us. I was on maternity leave. So it's just all firms.
Yeah.
Just filling up half this. Just think of dentists. You'll remember. I guess we're supposed to sit in the front. We're told us we're going to sit
We're on the back of the cliff.
We are too, but Betsy told us we had to stay up here, so I'll pay attention to Betsy. Her last day was.
Deliriously happy.
Cindy retired?
The other director, both directors retired at the same time. Cindy's last day is Friday.
Now, isn't she somewhere else, like
Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a, they're on the West Coast, we were on the East Coast, in LA.
She said nice things to my dad.
She did say, goodbye. Yeah.
What, so you have to.
That's an interesting point. I'm sure it's not.
Hi, everyone. I wasn't really planning to get up, but ta-da, here I am. Betsy gave me a little minute here from her presentation. Well, first of all, thanks to Betsy for offering to do this presentation. I really appreciate her stepping up. I know she's becoming a specialist now in her job here at Morrison Forrester in competitive intelligence. So I'm very interested to hear what she has to say today. And I know she's also been to some trainings recently that she found very valuable. So she's offered to pass that information on to us, which I think is fantastic. The only reason I got up here, and by the way, I'm Lisa Foster. I think I know all of you. SANDALL president, reference librarian at Thomas Jefferson Law School. So hi, if I don't know you. I just wanted to get up really quickly before Betsy starts and say, I know we're starting to get questions about the Institute, the inaugural joint As-All SANDALL Institute that we're holding in Phoenix next month. And I know it's getting really late for us not to have that registration out. We're hoping to get it out tomorrow. So please stand by for that. We have a conference call with the Arizona Group Board tomorrow. I think we're going to hammer out the last few details. And hopefully we will be able to get that out to you shortly because I know it's getting really late for those of us that have to travel to make the arrangements. But I'm hoping we can do some things like carpool. I plan to drive personally. So, once we figure out who's registered, who's going to be going, maybe we can start, sharing information about is there anyone that wants to drive together and, hopefully make this as easy to do as possible. And then we will be having some discount hotel rooms. So I'm really hoping we get the information out about that tomorrow. So, but I know there's been some expressions of interest, when's the registration going to come out for that? So I hope we get a good response. I know it's a lot to ask for you to travel to do the Institute, but I think it's going to be really fun. And hey, we got 15 people to go to Texas in July last year for AALL from SANDALL. So I think we can get at least that many to go to Phoenix at a nicer time of year. So thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm really looking forward to that institute, and I do plan on being there. So, yes. So I think you all know me. I'm Betsy Chesler. I've been with SANDALL for many years now, and I've always been in research services. But in June of this year, after 12 years at MoFo, I was promoted to Competitive Intelligence Manager. So I am still in research services, but one aspect of my job is competitive intelligence, which is of growing interest to law firms and I think also the legal community in general, wherever you're working. So this is going to be a very interactive session. I went to CI boot camp in December, and they did not have me march. They did not have me do push-ups or sit-ups. Instead, we were in a hotel conference room, and we were looking at charts like this. So the boot camp was put on by the SCIP Association, which stands for Strategic and Competitive Intelligence Professionals. They are the oldest CI association in the U.S. They're based in Texas, interestingly enough. And they draw from all industries and types of companies. And when I went to this boot camp, I was the only one representing a law firm. And there was a benchmarking report that came out in October of last year about CI in law firms, and it is still a developing field. So I felt I had that research background, but I didn't have the framework. So that's why I went to the boot camp, to get a sense of the tools, the framework, the structure of competitive intelligence. So what we're going to do today is talk about what CI is, what CI looks like in legal settings, and then we'll talk about some best practices for competitive intelligence. We'll look at the Sedgwick case study. Has anyone heard of the Sedgwick law firm and what befell them recently? Okay, well, we will be talking about that. And then we'll do an exercise in prediction, and then we'll talk about some next steps. What kind of questions do you need to ask to formulate a CI plan for your organization? So let's first talk about the definition of competitive intelligence. So when I went to the boot camp, they gave me a number of different definitions, and I'm listing them here for you. I've kind of condensed them, but you notice that I have bolded certain words. So what I want to emphasize is that competitive intelligence is not a data dump. It's not just about finding the information, it's about figuring it out. So you've got to take the data to information to actionable insight. So it's not valuable unless the information can be applied to decision making. So when you gather this information, you have to provide some analysis, some insight, some perspective. And I think as librarians sometimes we're uncomfortable with that, but I really think we have the ability, we can develop the ability to provide insight. We're smart people, so we can do that. And that is the challenge and the fun of competitive intelligence. So, CI 2.0 is when you take it to that next level and you provide those insights. And you bring those insights to the decision makers in your organization. That's really the highest value. So let's talk about CI in legal settings. So for me, of course, at a law firm, I have plenty of examples, but then I'm going to ask you for examples of how it might apply at your organization that is not a law firm. So here are some examples. So an attorney at a former client of ours leaves, and she's going to start as general counsel at another company on Monday. Should we approach her? If so, we should be doing some research on that company. Or we want to know about any connections we have with officers and directors at a particular company. Or we need company background for a request for production. Or we need to identify contacts that our lawyers should be meeting at an upcoming conference. Or we've just learned that the subsidiary of a key client has had some management changes, both at the executive level and in the legal department. So what key position changes are of the most interest to us? So some of these are reactive. People ask us for information, we get it for them. That's very important. Some is a little more proactive. I think that last bullet point, that's a little more proactive, requires a little more insight and intelligence. So these are some ways that CI manifests itself at law firms. But what about at other law libraries, other specialized libraries, other organizations? How have you seen that competitive intelligence could be valuable? So I'm opening up the floor. Yeah, Anne.
Hi, I'm Ann McGill. I work at UC San Diego in the Prospect Research Department and also a longtime investigative researcher. We use competitive intelligence to help identify new prospects, principal gifts prospects, and what their potential assets might be or their potential future assets might be, or perhaps liabilities. So a lot of SEC information, a lot of where did they come from, where did they go, who are their connections, who should we know that they know, and who do we know that they should know to try to produce additional connections for the university, but also who is blowing smoke. You know, we get people who tell us that they're going to, oh goodness gracious, shy librarian. We get a number of people who tell us that they're going to give us very large gifts. You know, oh, when this contract comes to fruition, we're going to give you X, Y, Z, or we're going to donate some large portion of stock or something. And we have to go and determine, is there any validity to that? Or do they have a history of making promises and not fulfilling them? So that's how I would use it in my industry.
Anyone else?
Well, a long time ago, I was the airline librarian for American Airlines. And of course, they're interested in what all the other airlines are doing in their competitive environment. So one time I had to, when they still had meals on planes, had to research what Alaska Airlines, you know, what they would serve on their different flights. So in a sense, competitive intelligence, they want to match up with what the competition is serving on the planes and so on. And that's just one example of, you know, that type of thing that I used to do.
Anyone else? Okay, so there can be a lot of different information and data points that are valuable depending on your end user, your organization. So now let's talk a little bit about strategy and best practices for CI and components of CI. So good CI requires accepting uncertainty because you typically are not going to have all the facts. Sometimes that's because the information was never gathered. No one thought to pull it together. Other times it's because it's not public. And competitive intelligence is not spying. It is not, you know, cloak and dagger stuff. We're all dealing with public information, and it may just not be public. So sometimes you're just going to have to provide your most intelligent guess. Of course, you know, you give your caveats and everything. But if you want to have all the information, if you wait until you have all the information, you may not be able to provide early warning and strategy. So you're just going to have to accept that you may not have all that information. And you're working toward perspective, not precision. Does it matter if you don't know that the exact sales figure for a company is 112 million? Is it sufficient that you know it's between 110 and 115 million? I think so. So if you have credible ballpark figures that are going to tell a story, that's what's important. You're connecting the dots. And sometimes you have to stick out your neck a little bit. That can be uncomfortable, but the more that you know about an industry, a client, the more you do this, the more comfortable you feel in providing that perspective. So you want to tell a story. The other thing is that good CI takes time, effort, resources, money. And one of the speakers at the Institute, he had this great quote: "The bottom line is that good, fast information isn't cheap. Fast, cheap information is rarely good." So that's something, you know, to convey to the end user. You know, if you want it fast, it's not going to be as good, or it's going to be more expensive. So good CI also requires questioning assumptions. So, true or false, only law firms can provide legal services. That is definitely false. So according to ALM Intelligence, over 50% of corporate legal departments are using alternative legal service providers. So it could be consulting firms, it could be legal process outsourcing firms, it could be the big four accounting firms. So if you started with the assumption that only law firms could provide legal services, you would be missing a lot of the picture. you would not be getting all the information that you need. So you have to think about that. What assumptions are you starting from? And be willing to question those assumptions. You also need to do thoughtful, creative, and validated research, and this is really our strong point. But I want to give you an example that I came across recently. The Wall Street Journal has these videos about different events, and they profiled open source analysts. So it's not the FBI, it's not the CIA, it was an institute in Monterey, California. And you know what they'd been doing? They had been looking at the propaganda pictures and videos that were released by the North Korean government. So here's an example here of a picture of a really big missile. Now I'm looking at this and I'm saying that's a big missile, and I can tell because there are those North Korean soldiers climbing all over it. But this Middlebury Institute went a step further, and they said, you know what, we can identify that truck that the missile is sitting on. That's made in Belarus. We can get the dimensions, all the specifications. That crane in the background is made in Japan. We can get all the dimensions of that. And so they looked at these pictures and video, and they were able to determine the exact size of that missile, the range of the missile, how it was fueled, what instruments, tools were used to create it, all kinds of stuff. The range, very scary stuff, but all done through, some good use of geometry, math, and just looking deeply at the public data. So I just, the point of that is that we have so much information out there, and we have to be creative in how we use it. Okay, so good CI also requires various viewpoints. The more you have, the better. So look at this picture. What is this picture? What do you see in this picture? Shout it out. Okay, so a garden, landscaping. What else? A shape of an eye, a shape of a fish. Right. Yeah, so initially we all see something different. And, if we're on the second floor of this building, we might see a fish or an eye. But if we're down on the ground, we say, oh, nice plants, right? Right? And so the more viewpoints and perspectives and expertise that we gather, the more we can validate what we're looking at, what that data might mean. So good CI also requires visuals and summaries that are meaningful to the decision maker. So which visual is most helpful here? Does anyone know what we're looking at? What's that? Okay, so this is El Capitan. So this is a famous rock in Yosemite National Park. And you can see I've shown, these are all good pictures, nothing wrong with any of them, but one shows you El Capitan during daylight, one at night, one shows the El Capitan, within the surrounding environment here, the different mountains. We get the coordinates, we get a map of the park, and we also get a map showing where it is in California. Which one is most helpful? It depends on what you want to do. It depends on the decision maker. What is most meaningful for the decision maker? And it could be that all they need to know is that it's in the middle of California, right? Maybe they need some more granular information. So you use the visuals, the summaries that are most valuable to the end user. Good CI also requires very compact, synthesized visuals and summaries. So here's an example, and you want to try and keep it to a single page. Okay, maybe a double-sided. That's okay. But here's an example that is from the internet. Was released to the public. This is Coca-Cola's roadmap for winning, together. So there's all kinds of stuff here. Our vision, our goals, our system priorities, our metrics, the vision. There's a lot of text here, but it's all on one page. Maybe too much text. But here's another visual. This is from Manzama. They've just released I don't know if anyone's heard of that. They're kind of a web scraper, and they track news. And they have this new program called Signals that tracks the health of a company, that gives it a score. So they have one of this graphic on their website. And what do you think this conveys? What do you take from this visual?
All of the components measure a different amount on the impact of the company health.
Exactly, yeah. What do you think about how this appears? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What do you like about it?
It's really confusing. Well, I don't know what it was for, so kind of.
Okay, well, one thing about these visuals is that you, as the CI professional, will often have to explain them. But that's good. That's job security, in my mind.
I like it. I think it's really clear to see the partners and competitors. That's like a big, the overlying factor, if I'm reading it correctly.
But what is it telling you about what company? It's not, I mean,
Can
it's
you
just like a,
click on each window and open the partners and see what it says about the partners and other stuff, or you don't?
No, you can't. You can't, but that is a really good idea. So, this, I think, gets your juices flowing in terms of, different ways of presenting your information. So this could be interactive. So you could have this visual and then be able to click on the various components of it. So this just gives you an example of the variety of ways that you can present your information. But importantly, you need to keep it short and to the point. You don't want to waste anyone's time. So your value comes in the synthesis, the perspective, the summary.
This question almost makes me think about learning styles or how people have preferences for how they receive information. Like some people like a graphical image like that, and other people would rather just see a list of bullets and text. So I don't know, maybe combining some of those different styles in one document is the most effective.
Yes, I agree with you there. Yeah, so do you have a preference between these two?
I like visuals. I like more graphical information.
Right. So that's the fun of CI. Okay, so to just summarize some of what I've said in terms of strategy and what good CI or next level CI requires is, again, that deep thinking, the discussion, the collaboration, the analysis, finding the right resources, doing your thoughtful research, living with that uncertainty, and aiming for perspective, not precision. There is no silver bullet for any of this. It just takes a lot of time and effort. So let's talk about that Sedgwick case study. So Sedgwick was an 85-year-old San Francisco firm that announced they were shutting down in November, and I believe that they are now closed. They were going to close in January. So you can see that there was some publicity over it, and you'll notice in this Law 360 article, it's dated August 8th, 2017. So if you saw that article, you might say to yourself, that doesn't sound good. Sedgwick reported multiple departures in 2017. In fact, they were rocked by multiple departures. I wonder what's going on with that firm. But let's take that a little deeper. What do you think would have predicted Sedgwick's demise? What observable events indicators do you think might have indicated it was in trouble? Go, Ian, you.
The rats fleeing the sinking ship.
Okay, so Ian, yes, attorney departures, I'll put it that way. Anything else? What other observable events could have predicted that they were starting
There were reports
downhill?
some client, a major client.
Okay, clients leaving. Yeah. What else?
Moving to a smaller office or something.
Okay, so changes in real estate.
Not paying their bills.
Okay,
Filing less cases.
okay.
Losing a lot of cases.
Losing cases, less litigation, offices closing. Bankruptcy filing would definitely do it. Okay, so I think those are some good indicators. So I wrote down, attorneys leaving, clients leaving, declining revenue. So the next step is, how would we rank these events? In terms of diagnosticity, which event would most likely indicate they were in trouble? Because if a client leaves, does that necessarily mean that the firm is going to go out of business, close down? Not necessarily. Or if they have declining revenue, is that diagnostic? It could be, but it depends on how much it declines. It depends on the economy in general, right? Of these, which are most observable? Which information is easiest to get at? And you may not know. I mean, you might have to do some research on that.
I would think attorneys leaving. Most firms have like a roster of the attorneys that's very public information.
Right.
All of a sudden, attorneys are disappearing off the website. That would be something probably that would be the easiest information to get at.
Right. So looking at the website,
Realize that a client left or fired them.
they may not reveal that, right? But you could see who, a decrease in the roster of attorneys at the website.
Or even on like news sources like.
Or news, exactly. AmLaw does this, yeah, exactly. So how about timeliness? Which of these indicators would give you the most advance notice that Sedgwick was having problems? Attorneys leaving, I heard one. Declining revenue.
You don't know the revenue until the end of that year.
Right, now that's a good point, Carmen, that, the revenue information is not available on a monthly basis typically. You get that information at the end of the year. If then, right? Okay, well, let's take a look. So we have to figure out what those top indicators are, and then we have to track them. So Leopard Solutions has done just that. Also, ALM Legal Compass does this sort of thing. So they were looking at the numbers, the attorneys leaving. So Laura Leopard there at Leopard Solutions sent me these screenshots, and she sent me 4. I'm going to show you 2 of them. But the essential thing here is that, remember that Law 360 article from August of 2017. They track the attorney departures throughout the year. So starting about March, April, the numbers started looking pretty bad. And here by June, so 6 months before that Law 360 article, you see they've lost 31% of their attorneys. And then in July, it's 33%, and they had started closing offices. On the back end, they had been trying to, sell or merge, and that had not succeeded. So here we get to October. Now they're down to, at the beginning of October, they've lost 42% of their attorneys. By the end of October, it's 45%. So the key here is that Leopard Solutions has been tracking law firms for a while, and in their experience, if a firm loses 25% or more of their attorneys, they are in serious trouble. They're declining. It's hard for them to make a turnaround. So we could have known as early as March that Sedgwick was on a downward spiral. We would have had a lot of notice, but we would have had to know, that we could track this information. We would have had to know this information source or find an information source that would help us track this information.
Question, maybe
Yes.
for later, but is this source capable of providing details like this on a larger scale? So if you knew about Sedgwick, that's one thing, but could a source like Leopard Solutions allow you to say which firms in this geographical area have 25% or greater loss of attorneys?
That's a good point. I think so, but I would have to confirm that. I mean, they track the larger law firms. So Sedgwick was big enough that it warranted tracking. And I think that you can, but I'd, search or filter by geography, but I'd have to double check that.
Now, I was guessing that data you were talking about, like that 25% figure, probably applies more to a larger firm than a smaller firm. So maybe the universe of what they're looking at is really the bigger firm.
Yes, and that's true. That's a good point, that a smaller firm, that had 4 attorneys and lost 2, so 50% decline, that doesn't mean that firm would go under. So, I mean, your job, and you do this all the time, is to look at the information and question it. Is this valid? Is this, diagnostic? So that's your job, is to do that check. Okay, so let's now try an exercise in prediction. We've kind of done that, but let's try it again with the question of what prompts or predicts litigation. What could lead to a lawsuit? Okay, so any ideas? Yeah, what events, what observable events could lead to a lawsuit?
Damage of some kind? Like, what do you mean?
Well, I'll give you an example.
Report of someone being, I don't know, poisoned by food at Chipotle? Like,
Exactly.
Like what type of law? Any type of law?
Yeah, any type. It could be, right, it could be intellectual property, or as Suzanne said, there is an adverse consumer event. There might not be a product recall. Right, exactly. Food poisoning at Chipotle's, excellent example. That's going to lead to some lawsuits. What else? Okay, so management changes, employees getting fired. Wildfire, yes. I hadn't thought about that, but yes, you're right. Those do natural disasters trigger litigation. What else? Civil unrest. What else? Okay, so customer dissatisfaction of various kinds. What else? Yes, Kevin, I'm going to have you track that, and so incorrect public announcements that affect public safety, like that ICBM missile alert in Hawaii that was completely inaccurate. Yeah, I would be panicked. Okay, anything else? Cybersecurity, yes, cyber breaches, definitely. Okay, anything else, and then we'll stop.
wrongful death of some kind, like
Okay.
taking your dog to the vet and the dog dies for no reason. I don't know.
Okay, wrongful death like of pets or people. Okay. Accident, frauds. Okay, government investigations, if you hear of them. Just about anything in the U.S. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I came up with a list, And one of them was patent expiry, upcoming patent expiry, always results in litigation. Sudden stock drop, stockholder lawsuits, that adverse consumer event that you talked about, the CEO gets fired, M&A activity, cybersecurity breach. So, the first thing that you do is you do this brainstorming. And that's why it's good to have a big group like we did here. And then you've got to rank those observable events. So of these, which do you think is the most diagnostic? Which of these will almost inevitably lead to litigation?
First one,
Yep. Mm-hmm. The third. Mm-hmm. Cybersecurity breach. Yep. Okay. Okay, I agree with you. That's a big discussion that you would need to have. And then how about observability? Which of these events is easiest to acquire information on? Okay, the stock drop, definitely. Right, right. So of these, which gives you the most advanced notice? Stock drop, I heard. Patent expiry, because that's going to happen in 20 years. I mean, whether or not that patent is still being used for this original purpose is anyone's guess, but many of these pharma patents really have staying power. So yeah, you're going to have a lot of advanced notice of that patent cliff. Okay, so that's what you need to do to form an early warning system. So these type of early warning systems, they prevent surprises, they help you plan, they identify opportunities, and if it's bad news, then you can mitigate the news, right? You can figure out how to respond. But these early warning systems are not easy. If everyone could do it, they would. So you need to identify and track the right metrics. And what you're looking for are leading metrics versus lagging metrics. So I have two statements here. Burberry announces the acquisition of Puma. Burberry announces the hire of a former Adidas marketing VP. Which of these do you think is leading and which do you think is lagging? Which gives you advance notice of an event and which kind of confirms the event? Actually, the first one is lagging.
well, it depends on which one happened first.
Well, I would think that they would hire a marketing VP from a sports apparel company before they launch a sports apparel line. I mean, which event is going to give you advance notice that they're moving into a different market area? But they haven't acquired a different company. Oh, that's true. They did, but maybe not.
I can see if they acquired Puma, then they need someone to run it really well, because who they have isn't capable, so this might require, like, we need somebody. Or maybe they would do it the other way around. We want to grow, so let's get somebody and then let's find them.
Right. But you are right, Ian, that if there is concerns about antitrust concerns, that yes, there might be some advance notice of the acquisition, but maybe not. Maybe it wasn't big enough or it wasn't. Yeah. So of these two, which is going to give you the most advance notice and the most indication that there's a shift in action? Okay. Good. This is.
Let's ask our resident fashionista, did they
This is an example from my boot camp, and I'm assuming it's correct, so that's good. I'm going to have to verify that. Okay. So, not everything can be tracked or should be tracked. You're going to have to be selective. What do the decision makers really want to know? What is the most value to them? Because it would take time and effort to do this kind of tracking. Okay, so we talked about the definition of CI in legal and specialized library settings, some of the best practices, that Sedgwick case study. We tried our hand at a little bit of prediction. And now let's talk about a little bit about the CI plan. And so this is what I spent like 4 days doing, was in a conference room, was, doing this kind of active group think. And we put together something called an intelligence capability business model. And so I have taken some of those questions from this model, and I'm going to ask you to think about these. So we have about 15 minutes, 13 minutes. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, the people that you're next to, either 2 or 3 people, that do it by, the first row, and then second row, to one side, the other side, and then the last row. And just get together and say, who are you serving in terms of competitive intelligence at your organization? What kind of information analysis would be most valuable for your organization? What kind of information sources would you need? What groups internally could help you gather some of that information? Or do you have to go outside your organization? What kind of intelligence could you start gathering right now this year? And then, so we'll do that for, say, 5, 7, 10 minutes. And then if anyone wants to share what they found, we'll do that. So, okay, go ahead, start talking.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an open mindset. That's why we just determine who are intelligence gather, analyze what intelligence externally,
It's more likely to have competitive analysis in the mix than you guys.
Although you might want to scope out what the other library.
Well, that's what I'm
What are some examples? I mean, it depends on the setting. We do a lot of like
for that person. And that kind of, well, if the company has that intellectual property, it's like, yeah.
We're gonna be very
And
patient.
who are we serving? It's just gonna be a problem.
Well, I think we're supposed to think like law, serving our clients, what information is valuable to the clients, what are they most interested in, how they're not getting it sued. How to avoid litigation, right? Right, like if it's the client, but then that's bad for the attorney, because the attorneys want to be responsive, so how to best serve the clients.
Actionable news on prospective clients.
Yeah, that's something.
How's that?
Yeah.
For the attorneys.
Yeah.
They come to us, they're like, we're thinking of taking on this client.
Yeah.
What do we know about it? Nothing, you don't want to take on clients. That's one thing. Then the other thing is, how secure are they financially? So will they, even though they might be a huge client, because they have so many things. Oh, absolutely.
You're asking about the rest.
So that's,
Litigation research, you want to make sure they're not bankruptcy filed.
so the attorney is often asking for information on perspectives.
Business
Or,
development.
yeah, it's business development. But also, they want to be alerted of any new tools that might be conflict.
So that information is valuable. Yeah, they like, if we have ignition rights, they want to track any litigation involving that.
Yeah, they'll tell us to alert so that different databases that we have will tell us, oh, this company is a party. Georgia, or only in California, if that's what they're.
Because they want to look at the complaint, and then we usually that's when password overnight. Remember the one time when he got mad at me because I didn't give him the password? He said, we need to know this information right away. Because our competitors might be looking at it right
You're
now.
not gonna wait until 8 a.m.
For business development.
Like, really, you're gonna throw out there some possible.
Well, they want us to do
Midnight?
the first to know.
That's really, that's the easy one. Really? Yeah, from resources to use. Okay.
That was really interesting.
It's like, are we going to put the names of the things?
Okay, you need public records for sure. We know what those are. News databases for sure.
Okay, one more minute. One more minute.
Databases, because they tell us about companies being sued and also who represents them, which is really important. Oh, I don't know what they do.
We don't know.
Yeah, because we're not in the law, we don't know, so that's why.
We just do that.
Also, sorry, that's what it is. Databases
Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left. So if anyone would like to share, I think it would be very useful. I'm not going to force anyone, but I am going to pass around the microphone, and we'll just talk about each of these questions. So please speak into the microphone. I'm trying to record this so that we can share it.
Oh, no, don't have me talk. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about, who are you serving? What kind of responses did you come up with?
Okay, we came up with, from the law firm perspective,
Basically, we have the mid-range client and the end user client. The client is the end user, the attorney is the middle user, let's say.
Okay, interesting. So you're serving the attorney and
Those are our
staff
two,
and,
yeah,
right.
basically our two main users. And it's just that usually what's happening is we're giving attorneys information so that they can help the client. So,
Right,
That's
so
why
you're
we have
helping
them
them make
as-
the pitch, the attorney
yeah.
make the pitch, make them look good. Okay, who else are you serving? That middle group there. Suzanne, do you want to say anything?
So our group had 3 different perspectives of who we were serving. So as a legal publisher perspective, I'm serving ultimately our executive director, our marketing director, sales director, but also our customers. And Ian is serving his dean and directors, right? But also his students as well. Maybe even those who want to donate to your school too,
Okay.
perhaps.
So customers, students, alumni.
And then you're serving, well, you know who she serves, right? Shareholders and partners and also clients. So a lot of different people.
Okay. Any other input on who you're serving?
Well, for those of us at a university, I may be serving someone as high as the chancellor who may be going out to meet individuals. So I want to make sure he's not going to make an idiot of himself by, not having an important piece of information.
Okay, so decision makers at all levels. Okay.
Attorneys and clients, so that's already been said.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything.
Yes. Okay, have we covered that? Okay, so what information analysis would be most helpful or valuable for those people or groups that you're serving? We can start there, your group.
I think we came up with a variety of answers just because our audiences are so different. Yeah, I'm not even sure where to start. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think a majority of the questions I get are from attorneys trying to develop business. So it's not necessarily serving the client, but to gain clients. So I think that might be our most useful.
Okay, any input from behind you?
For me, serving not just the attorneys, but also the budget person. There's a lot of go back and forth with our accounting and budget people. So
Okay, what to spend your money on too? Sure.
yeah, or not.
Or not to spend your money on. Okay.
Well, and I think part of how you answer these questions depends on who you is. Because I heard a little bit of a different perspective. When I was looking at the questions, I was thinking of the you as my institution as a whole, not just me or the library. So I
Okay,
answered them maybe
good.
a little bit differently than Ian did for the academic institution. I was thinking our institution serves those who are seeking various type of degrees that we provide. Maybe also our alumni, because we do provide services to the alumni. Maybe in some cases we serve the public in some ways. Like I know our professors will, comment for news articles and provide information to the outside world. Part of that promotes our institution, but primarily those seeking the degrees that we provide. And, just in the place where my institution is at, we're interested in attracting more business of students who want to obtain the degrees and maybe expanding degree programs. So we might be looking at information about what is the market for expanded degree programs, where maybe are there degree programs that aren't available enough that there's demand for, that we could, fill that gap in the market. What accreditation we might need for certain degree programs if we don't have it already, and how we get it. What information analysis would be valuable. Just anything that will help us serve our existing customers or incoming customers. So legal research resources, any kind of, information about how we deliver our education online versus in person, what technologies we use. I mean, it's just almost endless. Enough.
Okay, so we're going to run out of time to answer all of these questions, but tell me, what's the hardest part of answering these questions? So time to do the research to answer these questions.
Making sure you have the big picture of that perspective thing you were talking about.
Right, getting the big picture. Are you headed in the right direction? And how do you know if you're headed in the right direction unless you ask a lot of people and you have a consensus? Okay. Prioritizing.
Things you could potentially research or gather information about.
Right, your time is limited, your resources are limited. Where can you best place them? Okay. So thank you very much for attending today, and if you have any questions, I'll be here for the next couple minutes and get some more food. Thanks.
If you guys don't mind, can I ask for a photo?
Here you go.
I've never used that before. Thank you so much. I don't know.
That was the newsletter one, right?
I'd love to hear more stories about things you've actually worked on, but maybe that's confidential information.
I did kind of genericize it.
Well, yeah, you have to some extent. I totally understand that.
I'm trying to turn this off.
We count on Isabella to do this, so we have to do a newsletter.
That's if you want to change it to the word competitive intelligence.
Yes, that's a great idea. Okay, let's see.
I can still do this. I'm proud of myself.
I'm just getting to the first
No, I
page.
didn't say that. I'm not that proud. I'm proud of myself.
Okay.
Nice. Great. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, and smile. And another one just in case. Thank you. No questions.
All right.
Oh, thank you.
Great program.
Thank you.